Hey y'all, Billed Hickok here. Just having a good old glass of old-fashioned glue and batteries out of my Alice in Wonderland cup right here. You see this shit? Remember that film, Alice in Wonderland? Man, I was tripping balls the first time I saw that shit. Man, that cat used to fuck with my head. It used to like take a big old psychedelic cat dick and just ear fuck me, just skull fuck me. Skull fuck me with wisdom. He used to skull fuck me with wisdom. But hey, I'm here today to talk to you about something that's near and dear to my good old cholesterol clogged heart here. I have to got high collectional. I got high cholesterol. And I've recently had to change my diet. Some friends of mine, some hip bohemian friends of mine from the city, the big little apple, Pittsburgh, the old burg. Anyway, yeah, they've got me hip and square and rectangular and all that other hip shipping dipping. They turned me on to this anti-lentil diet. Yes, there's some anti-lentites out there in the burg. But basically, yeah, they turned me on to this plant paradox diet where I'm cutting out all my lentils. I'm taking my beans and I'm stir-frying them in a big old pot of Aztec voodoo. But positive, white magic. White positive magic, encrusted anti-lentil beans. That's what I've been on. And I'm going to eat that from now on every morning, noon, and night. But no, that's not what I want to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was that there seems to be a lot of misunderstandings about so-called flyover country from these motherfuckers, these well-meaning but misinformed motherfuckers up in the city. I just turned into like from Louisiana or something. Anyway, but yeah, what was I gonna say? What the hell was I gonna say? Hey, you guys like Cirrhosis? It's a good band. I saw them back in 2004, playing with Radiohead. Anyway, excuse me. Damn. Diabetes is acting up. There seems to be a misconception from the city folk that all us people out here in the flyover country are nothing but a bunch of bumpkins who don't know no better. Okay? And that's why I'm going to change into talking in my regular voice to talk about this. Okay, yeah, there seems to be a misconception from a lot of city folk that everyone in the small towns are just sort of like uneducated bumpkins. And I don't necessarily blame people for having this misconception, especially if you never go outside of the city. And what made me think about this is that I have some friends from the city who they're kind of like hippie new age types, but they don't really go outside of the city very often. You know, they're not really immersed into like true nature that often, which you'll find like in order to like fully become embraced in that sort of that lifestyle, you have to like step out of the urban environments part of the time. You have to go into like small town areas or places where there's a lot of nature, things like that, in order to become fully immersed in that kind of lifestyle. Not personally, I'm sort of a Green Acres type guy, in which sometimes I want to be in the city and sometimes I want to be out in the country, but you know, it depends on my mood, honestly. But yeah, there does seem to be a misconception that everyone from places like West Virginia are all just uneducated bumpkins, and it's mostly coming from people who are well-meaning, but they just it's a misconception that's not really based in reality. I mean, it's funny, especially West Virginia. Like, it's not the greatest state in the world. There's certainly like a lot lacking here, but the misconception is that we're all uneducated. The misconception is that we're all uneducated here, because I think a lot of it has to do with where there's a lot of like West Virginia gets poked fun of a lot in the media and things like Daily Show and things like that. I think it kind of gets an unfair jab, honestly, because you know, a lot of interesting and intelligent people actually come from here. Now, I mean, I grew up here in a small town. Then I've also lived in Morgantown, which is kind of a bigger city off and on, which is more cultured. And I've also lived in like Pittsburgh and Baltimore a few times. But at the moment, I'm back in the small town where I was born for a little while. Then I'm probably going to head off to Asheville or Austin or something, but anyway, more on that another time. But yeah, because a lot of the media like kicks around West Virginia, like makes it think like we're all like inbred hicks who, you know, had kids for our sisters and shit. But it's really just not true. Like there's, especially because it's really hard to find true places like that anymore in 2018, like post-internet culture. And that's what, if a lot of people like from the city have no desire to go into the small towns, and I don't necessarily blame them, because there's a lot lacking there. Unless you're willing to go past it and go towards where some pretty nature is. Like, there's lots of pretty nature here. But that's what I think fuels a lot of this misconceptions about small towns and small areas and stuff like that. I as someone who grew up and went to high school like in a really small town, and I turned out like this crazy, weird mess that I am, so I'm proof that like small areas can foster individuals. You know, especially because we live in a post-internet culture. Like, I went to high school in the fucking early 2000s in like a small rural town, and I got a lot of exposure to culture, to the world, for a combination of like internet in the early days, and like my brother-in-law and my sister who went up to college in a nearby college town called Fairmont. There's nothing too special about it, but there are intelligent people like live there, cultured people live there, and plenty of them go off to bigger, better things like in the big city and whatnot. So, and a lot of them try to disconnect from their origins, which I used to kind of like be a fan of that, honestly, but the more I think about it, it's just kind of stupid and sort of disingenuous, and it just continues this misconception that people from small areas are stupid and people from big cities are smarter. It's not really the case. If you were to do a very sincere door-by-door analysis and go around actually talking to people, you wouldn't actually find that that's the case. Like, for one thing, I've met people at farmers markets before, like some like really crazy cool people. Like, I went to a farmers market in a small town around here, like Fairmont, I think it was, and met this cool older like gutter punk hippie type couple. The guy had like, well, I think they both had like dreadlocks or something like that, and they're really into like punk and ska and dance music and just unexpected shit. And they live out in some small area like in the boondocks. They own like a little organic farm. And other people I met at that farmers market, some have this sort of post-hipster earnest type thing going on. Like these people, they have like an urban vibe to them, but they got tired of the city, so they came out to the country to start like an organic farm or something. And I know another guy who used to be a musician in Morgantown, who used to be in a Radiohead-esque band. Pretty cultured guy, you know, dresses kind of plainly these days, and you wouldn't really know to look at him that he's actually like pretty intelligent, pretty cultured, because now he's running like an organic farm out in like Fayetteville, like Fayette County, I believe, kind of close by to Point Pleasant. And there's just countless more like stories like that of people that I've met. Just these like different, unusual people who come from or still live in small areas. And so I don't necessarily blame urban people for having this misconception. It's just it comes from a lack of knowledge. I mean, mostly because these are not places that you would want to necessarily live if you need to be around culture 24/7. Now, I like culture as much as the next person, but I don't need to be submerged in external culture 24/7 because I have enough going on internally in my own internal interests that it's just not necessary for me to do so. But also, although I'm into a lot of music and bands that could be loosely interpreted as sort of liberal-ish, I'm actually a very conservative person in a lot of ways. So I'm different than a lot of bohemia types in that regard. So small towns don't bother me as much, though there are positives and negatives. And certainly, if I want to like go out to like a good show or something, I'm gonna go up to Pittsburgh. I'm not gonna fuck around with shit around here. But I mean, it's just you gotta take the good with the bad, I guess, with pretty much anywhere. And I've even like from my business, like working for my parents at the moment, like I've found some of the clients kind of surprise you. Like I've seen some clients who kind of just look like run-of-the-mill, like rednecks or something. You wouldn't think too much of them if you just pass them on the street. Like if you're from the city or something, you might be like, oh, it's just a fucking know-nothing redneck. But but actually, you know, once you get to know some of these people, they're actually more intelligent and cultured than you would think. Like the one guy who's pretty kind of a hardcore redneck, but he's had some like pretty astute and intelligent thoughts on like conspiracies and things like that. You know, he believes that war is used as a population control. I mean, that's the kind of idea that you usually hear discussed amongst urban hippie conscious types, and this guy is like a redneck, a hillbilly, discussing this. So it's like, so-called redneck, so-called hillbilly. Not getting anyone triggered here. I don't want to trigger any damn skin belly, squid belly, bub. Anyway, I don't want to trigger any fucking leftist, rightist, centrist, SJW, www.waldo.com, Bobo the clown, fuck me around. You spin me round and round. Alright, I forgot what I was talking about. But yeah, I've met some like redneck quote unquote type dudes who are actually like pretty intelligent, and you know, and they know about the typical cultural shit. That's sort of universal. That's sort of like that's come back in style with the whole 90s-ish anti-fashion normcore, what the fuck ever. Like, mainstream culture is no different than underground culture. You just have to like look for the positives and negatives and everything. Especially when you realize that now that the so-called underground culture is every bit as sort of connected to the mainstream as the so-called mainstream. Like, there's really no difference anymore if you honestly think about it. As someone who's played amongst the scenes in like Pittsburgh and Ohio and shit like that, and toured and also done the whole small town thing, like I can tell you that you can analyze pretty much anything and find the positives and negatives. And take for example like a lot of like occult programming, very prevalent in the mainstream, but as someone who's connected to the underground scene too, I can tell you there's a lot of occult shit there too. Like these bands that aren't too well known or famous, like metal bands and stuff, who have a lot of like Illuminati symbolism in their work, and these are like underground bands, like cool hip. It's like, my favorite band only has 200 followers. I was a fan of them before you were, sort of shit. You can analyze pretty much anything from the mainstream to the underground and find the positives and negatives. And I think in this sort of 90s-ish, retro 90s anti-fashion, weird kind of universality type thing that we got going on right now, it's like, that's like pretty apparent. I don't know, South Park, Simpsons did it. Let's see, what else? What else? What else?
What else?
Oh shit, I spilled my glue cup. I spilled my glue battery cup. My good old nutritious glue batteries.
So anyway,
I got something to say. I got something to say. I'm a fly boy. I'm part fly like Jeff Goldblum. And I'm gonna fly over your country. More like fly over your country. Fuck you, you bitch ass whore. I'm gonna fly over your country and defecate in the shopping malls. Strip mall ocean. Life ain't nothing but a strip mall ocean, and I'm the fucking rider on the storm, you know what I'm saying, man? Yeah, I'm flipping over the flip mode like... I'm flipping over the flip mode like fucking Snoop Dogg. No, wait, that's, I ain't Snoop Dogg. Who the fuck is that? Oh, yeah, it's Buster Rhymes.
Every motherfucker in my crew is dangerous.
So, fuck you bitch ass whore. You ain't nothing but a slut.
If you like this radio,
Why don't you subscribe right here? Yes, right up here. There's a video. It's usually gonna be some sort of alternative progressive song or discussion or a skit or some combination therein, and here's gonna be the same thing.
alright. Subscribe, bitches.
subscribe long time, bitches.